Look over here because the sun's shining in my eyes, but all this other crowd over here, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for all you've done. Look, thanks for sharing this day with us. Why this day matters to you and your fellow iron workers and your families, and you explained it well. For all the folks at home, I know this day matters to you as well. I know you're tired of the bickering in Washington, frustrated by the negativity, and you just want us to use and focus on your needs, your concerns, and the conversations that are taking place at your kitchen table. Conversations as profound as they are ordinary. How do I find work? And how do I get there? How can our small business thrive and our child succeed in school? Or how do we emerge from this pandemic, not just with a little bit of breathing room, but with real fighting chance to get ahead? When we ran for president, I thought maybe I could help answer some of those questions for you and the needs you have. Because every time I'd ride home on Amtrak, I'd go through just north of just south of Baltimore. I'd look out, go through a suburban neighborhood. I'd look in all those lights are on in the windows, Nance, and I'd look and I wonder, what are they talking about? I'm serious, swear to God. What are they talking about sitting at that table? What are they talking about? They're talking about the things that I talked about at our kitchen table, Jill at hers, and all of you as well. And that's about how can we come together to be president for all Americans, to make sure our democracy delivers for you, for all of you. And I promised that we couldn't just build back to what it was before. We literally had to build back better. You couldn't build back. We're the only country that's always come out of great crises stronger than we went in. And the world has changed, and we have to be ready. My fellow Americans today, I want you to know we hear you and we see you. The bill I'm about to sign along is proof that despite the cynics, Democrats and Republicans can come together and deliver results. We can do this. We can deliver real results for real people. We see in ways that really matter each and every day to each person out there. And we're taking a monumental step forward to build back better as a nation. I want to thank everyone who helped make this happen. Vice President Harris, my cabinet members, my White House team, Jill, Doug, our first lady, and our first lady and our second husband. No, I'm joking. These guys travel all over the country together. I'm getting worried, you know. And Doug's one hell of a lawyer besides. And everybody from the United States Senate, Majority Leader Schumer, and a group of Senate Democrats and Republicans who established this bipartisan framework, including representatives and all the folks you heard from. Senator Rob Portman is a really hell of a good guy. I'm not hurting you, Rob, because I know you're not running again. That's the only reason I say it. But you are a hell of a good guy. And the most determined woman I know, Senator Kristen Sinema. Congratulations, Kristen. Look, Committee Chair Tom Carper, Ranking Member Shelley Moore Capito. I also want to thank Minority Leader Mitch McConnell for voting for this bill and talking about how useful and important it is. And from the House of Representatives, Speaker Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, Jim Clyburn, and Committee Chair Pete DeFazio, Democrats and Republicans, progressives and moderates, I'd like to pause and ask all the committee chairs and ranking members of the United States Senate and House that are here today, please stand. Will all of you stand? Come on. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To state the obvious, none of this would have happened without all of you. I really mean it. And also to the governors. Where are the governors? Governors, stand up. Come on, I want you to stand up. Red states, blue states, you all contacted me. You all said you were for this. You all stepped up. And more than 375 mayors, Democrats and Republicans, from every state and District of Columbia, wrote me asking to get this done. You got it, kid. and nearly 50 of whom are here today, including Republican Mayor Fontana, who from Fontana, California, Mayor Warren, who spoke earlier, and county and state and tribal leaders as well, civil rights leaders, faith leaders, law. This law was supported by business groups, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the National Association of Manufacturers, the Business Roundtable, representing 200 of the largest corporations in America, and other top business. I want to especially thank, and I'm sure you'll all, as we used to say in the Senate, I stand point of personal privilege, I want to thank organized labor, who understands this about jobs. You all stood up. Jobs, 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 jobs. Special thanks to the AFL-CIO, the United Auto Workers, electrical workers, the IBEW, the iron workers. It goes on, plumbers, pipe fitters, and the building trades, steel workers. Who would I leave out? Pardon me? And my wife is a member of the union, the NEA. I'm going to get in trouble. Machinists, so many more. Look, folks, for too long, we've talked about having the best economy in the world. We've talked about asserting American leadership around the world with the best and the safest roads, railroads, ports, airports. Here in Washington, we've heard countless speeches and promises and white papers from experts. But today, we're finally getting this done. So my message to the American people is this: America's moving again, and your life is going to change for the better. If you live in one of the 10 million homes, or you're a child who attends one of the 400,000 schools or child care centers that still has lead pipes in them, you face a clear and present danger to your child's health and your health now. This law is going to start to replace 100% of the nation's lead pipes and service lines. So every American, every child can turn on the faucet and drink clean water. And tens of thousands of plumbers and pipe fitters are going to get work done in good-paying jobs. Folks, as we saw with remote learning, remote working during the pandemic, access to high-speed internet is essential. And access to water as essential as access to water and electricity. This law is going to make high-speed internet affordable and available everywhere in America, urban, suburban, rural, and create jobs laying down those broadband lines. No parent, excuse me, no parent should have to sit in a parking lot at a fast food restaurant again, just so their child can use the internet to do their homework. That's over. And folks, if I visited your town, I'm sure you'd be able to tell me and where you hold your breath as you cross the particular bridge, or where the most dangerous intersection in your town is. This law makes us the most significant investment in roads and bridges in the past 70 years. It makes the most significant investment in passenger rail in the past 50 years and in public transit ever. So what that means is you're going to be safer and you're going to get there faster, and we're going to have a whole hell of a lot less pollution in the air. The bipartisan law will modernize our ports, our airports, our freight rail to make it easier for companies to get goods to market, reduce supply chain bottlenecks, as we're experiencing now, and lower cost for you and your family. The law also builds on our resilience so that the next storm, superstorm, drought, wildfire, hurricane can be dealt with. Last year alone, the United States, as a consequence of these kind of extreme weather events, lost $99 billion in the United States alone in damage. After Hurricane Ida, I see the distinguished governor from Louisiana is over there. I saw him stand up. I went down to see him. We went through and saw all the damage there. They had 179-mile-an-hour winds at top speed in Louisiana. But then I headed on up to New York. Chuck, we're up in your area, in the Queens, in New Jersey. More people died there than in the hurricane. More people died with the flooding. Record wildfires raged, and I went to Idaho and California and saw it. More land is burned to the ground than the entire state of New Jersey out west. Folks, walk the neighborhoods and look the people in the eye in these circumstances, as many of you have, and you'll see the despair and the heartache. So many of you understand. You're living through it. This law builds back our bridges, our water systems, our power lines, our levees, better and stronger. So few Americans be flooded out of their homes or lose power in those days and weeks as a consequence of the storms that hit. Folks, this bipartisan law, for the first time ever, creates a true national network of charging stations for electric vehicles, over 500,000 of them, so you can charge your car here and drive all the way to California, not worrying about having to find places to charge, creating thousands of jobs, thousands. It is also going to make it possible for Americans to get off the sidelines and into the game of manufacturing solar panels, wind turbines, batteries to store energy and power for electric vehicles, including electric school buses, which will mean millions of children will no longer inhale the dangerous diesel fumes that come out of the buses. For real, it's a big deal. And it'll reward companies for paying good wages and for buying American, sourcing their products here in America right now. It's going to help the United States export clean energy technologies to the world, creating tens of thousands of more jobs. There's so much more in the law, but most of all, it does something truly historic. I ran for president believing it was time to rebuild the backbone of this nation, which I characterize as working people in the middle class. They're the ones who built the country. And to rebuild the economy from the bottom up and the middle out. This law delivers on that long overdue promise, in my view. It creates better jobs for millions of Americans. And no one earning less than $400,000 a year will pay a single penny in federal taxes because of it. And it does not include, as we did the bipartisan infrastructure bill, it does not include a single penny in gas tax, which I rejected because people under $400,000 would be paying it. This law is a blue-collar blueprint to rebuild America. It leaves no one behind. And it marks an inflection point that we face as a nation. For most of the 20th century, we led the world by significant margin because we invested in ourselves. But somewhere along the way, we stopped investing in ourselves. We risked losing our edge as a nation, and China and the rest of the world are catching up. Our infrastructure used to be rated the best in the world. Now, according to the World Economic Forum, we rank 13th in the world. Well, that's about to change. Things are going to turn around in a big way. For example, because of this law, next year will be the first year in 20 years American infrastructure investment will grow faster than China's. We'll once again have the best roads, bridges, ports, and airports over the next decade. And we'll lead the world into the 21st century with modern cars and trucks and transit systems. We're going to do this by building again and moving again. Folks, too often in Washington, the reason we didn't get things done is because we insist on getting everything we want, everything. With this law, we focus on getting things done. I ran for president because the only way to move this country forward, in my view, was through compromise and consensus. That's how the system works. That's American democracy. And I'm going to be signing a law that is truly consequential because we made our democracy deliver for the American people. We compromised. We reached a consensus. That's necessary. And now our focus moves to implementing an infrastructure law that's going to, with speed and with discipline. I have a lot of experience in doing that. When I was vice president, I was given responsibility for overseeing and implementing the Recovery Act for nearly $900 billion emergency package. I'm proud to say that when we finished implementing that Recovery Act, it was determined that there had been less than 0.2% waste, fraud, or abuse. And it was how I learned and earned the nickname Sheriff Joe from President Obama, because I made it a point every single day for well over a year to stay on top of how the money was being used. I spoke with over 160 mayors, 2-3 times sometimes. And I spoke with county executives and every governor save one. Well, I won't mention that. And save one. She could see Alaska from reports, but monitor what we're doing. That was just how it was being done. And it was one of the most efficient implementations of a major program in American history. And now we owe it to the American people to do the same thing again. And to make sure every penny is spent where it's supposed to go in a timely fashion, I've asked the former mayor of New Orleans and former lieutenant governor of Louisiana, Mitch Landrieu, to oversee this responsibility. He'll have full access to every tool the federal government has and to get it done. And we have the high obligation and responsibility to make sure this money is used wisely and used well. Folks, I've been looking forward to this day for a long time, like all of my colleagues here have. Tomorrow, I'll be traveling to New Hampshire to visit a bridge that is structurally not safe, like thousands of bridges across America. That's what this law is all about, keeping communities safer and more efficient. On Wednesday, I'll be in Detroit to meet with the UAW workers who are building the next generation of electric vehicles. And that's just the beginning. We're also seeing you'll be seeing me and Vice President Harris, Jill and Doug, cabinet officials, hitting the road to help you understand how this is going to transform your lives for the better. And folks, when you see those projects starting in your hometowns, I want you to feel what I feel, pride. Pride in what we can do together as the United States of America. Folks, you know, the same goes for my plan to build back better for the people, getting folks back to work and reducing costs of things like child care, elder care, housing, health care, prescription drugs, and meeting the moment on climate change. I'm confident that the House will pass this bill, and then we're going to have to pass it in the Senate. And that's fully paid for. It will reduce the deficit over long term, according to the leading economists in the world. And again, no one earning less than $400,000 will pay a single penny more in federal taxes. And together with the infrastructure bill, millions of lives will be changed for the better. Folks, let me close with this. Throughout our history, we've emerged from crises by investing in ourselves. During and after the Civil War has been referenced, we built the Transcontinental Railroad, uniting East and West and uniting America. During the Cold War, we built the interstate highway system, transforming how America lived their lives. And now we're emerging from COVID-19 pandemic and we'll build an economy for the 21st century. When I met with the president of China, who I'm going to be speaking with tonight, several years ago, he asked me, we were in China, he said, could I define America? And I said, absolutely. It's the God's truth. I said, absolutely. I can define it in one word. Possibilities. Possibilities. There is no limit to what our people think we can do. And there is no limit to what our nation can do. And there is no one thing that I know more than this. It's never, ever been a good bet to bet against the American people. Never, never, never. Given half a chance, the American people have never, ever, ever let this nation down. And it's our job to give our people that chance. It's our job to come together and make sure we remain a nation of possibilities. As I look out in this crowd today, I see Democrats and Republicans, national leaders, local leaders, all elected officials, labor leaders, business leaders, and most of all, I see fellow Americans. I see America. Let's remember this day. Let's remember we can come together. Most of all, let's remember what we've got done for the American people when we do come together. I truly believe that 50 years from now, historians are going to look back at this moment and say, that's the moment America began to win the competition of the 21st century. So with confidence, optimism, with vision and faith in each other, let's believe in possibilities. Let's believe in one another. And let's believe in America. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Now let me sign this bipartisan bill.
Take the Vice President's pledge out of your way, sir. There you go. Yes, sir.
Oh, my mask.
One of the prerogatives of being President of the United States is the privilege of inviting others up on stage at a momentous moment of your presidency. President Biden certainly regards the signing of this infrastructure legislation as precisely that. So in the soft afternoon light of a beautiful day on the south lawn of the White House, President Biden, surrounded by some of the 800 guests assembled there to watch the signing of this infrastructure legislation, will now set about that important work. Let's watch and listen.
I'm going to get you each a pen, but there's 30 of you up here. I only have one pen with me.
Let's break it in 30 parts.
All right, Vice President, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Bravo. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Joining us now from the South Lawn of the White House, senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Ed, I've got two questions for you. The first, the president and many others who spoke about this legislation described it as a radiant moment of bipartisanship. With my apologies to what they say on Broadway, might we also observe that this is a limited engagement, one bill only display of bipartisanship?
That's right, Major. As the sun sets on the 299th day of his presidency, he said there, let's remember this day. He may want to, because it may end up being one of the only significant bipartisan moments in Washington as he's president right now. Republicans who spoke on stage earlier even decried the Build Back Better plan that they're hoping to pass in the House this week as a partisan exercise and one that's not going to win any Republican support. So this is a big moment for this White House. As you said, 800 people here, a handful of governors and mayors from across the country, many of whom in one way or another were involved in pushing Congress to get this passed. And if you're looking for examples of how exactly this money is going to be spent, take, for example, what the New York Governor, Kathy Hochul, did before she came here today. In Albany, at the airport, she announced that there'd be $28 million from this bill pumped into improvements at that airport, and said that subway fares in New York City will not go up this year because they'll be paid for by the bipartisan infrastructure bill. The Republican mayor of Oklahoma City is here today. He's been a big supporter of this and has been pushing for it since the spring. Talking to reporters outside the White House today, pointed out that while there isn't necessarily anything specifically in the bill yet for Oklahoma City, it'll be determined by state leaders. He's happy to hear that given the historic investment Amtrak is going to get, they'll be able to run new train lines from Oklahoma City up north into Kansas. He noted that train lines once ran from Kansas into Oklahoma, but not since the 1880s when those were originally built. So that gives you a sense of how this money is going to be spent and why so many Democratic and Republican mayors and governors were happy to be here today.
Ed, my second question to you is this. As you know, and as the White House no doubt knows, this ceremony could have been held several weeks ago. It was not. This bill was held as a means of creating either pressure or momentum or some dimension of leverage for Build Back Better. That didn't play out. It's now being signed now. Any degree of regret in the White House for going down that strategic route and delaying this moment?
No, in fact, there's a few reasons why they wanted to hold it today. One, because they're putting now public pressure on fellow Democrats to get Build Back Better passed in the House. Second, he really did want to wait for Democrats and Republicans to be back here in Washington after the Veterans Day recess to stand on stage, as they just did with him, to sign this bill, an acknowledgement that they worked together to get this done. The Republican and Democratic negotiators, Rob Portman of Ohio, Kirsten Sinema of Arizona, spoke before he did and talked about the process. But there's another thing. He mentioned this. They're waking up right now over in China, preparing for a major virtual summit that President Xi will have with President Biden tonight. This White House wants China to see that the United States is about to invest billions, trillions of dollars in infrastructure to catch up to them. Major.
On the South Lawn of the White House, Ed O'Keefe, thank you so very much. Congressional correspondent Nicole Killian is, of course, at the U.S. Capitol. Nicole, there is this talk about bipartisanship, and yet, as this is happening, some Republicans who voted for this are not there, and some who did are receiving criticism from fellow members of their party and even getting some kind of very heated threats to their offices. Talk to our audience about that.
Yeah, that's right, Major. I mean, for all this talk of consensus and compromise that the president was touting and bipartisanship, it has come with a price for some members of Congress, including those 13 House Republicans who supported this infrastructure bill earlier this month. For instance, Michigan Congressman Fred Upton described explicit messages that he received, some that we can't repeat on this air, but in essence calling him a traitor. And we have talked to a number of congressional offices who have said that they have gotten hundreds, if not thousands, of hostile and aggressive calls following this vote. And what's interesting is we have heard very little, if any, from Republican leaders, and namely the minority leader in the House, Kevin McCarthy. So, it does raise concerns about, something that traditionally has been bipartisan, and now in this new polarized environment has become a very difficult vote for a number of members. And you wonder what that presents or what that bodes for future legislation in this Congress.
Nicole Killian at the Capitol for us. Thank you very much. I want to let you know our coverage continues on our 24-hour streaming service. That, of course, CBSN. You can watch it at cbsnews.com, or we invite you to download our CBS News app on your cell phone or your connected TV. There will be much more on your local news and on tonight's CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Major Garrett in Washington.
For news 24 hours a day, go to CBSNews.com.
Welcome to CBS Mornings.
Up next, stories you'll be talking about today. That's a big deal.
People stop me on the street and say, I always learn something new every day when I watch your show.
This morning, we're going to begin with some good news.
Oh, you just put me in a good mood.
Just follow me. I'll lead the way.